A girl sits on the floor of her father's hall, staring at a log that will not burn. Her father is the sun. He leans down and says, "Look." The log bursts into flame and falls to ash in a single heartbeat. "And that is the least of my powers," he tells her. "Can you do as much?" She stares at those logs all night. She cannot. Centuries later, that same girl will kneel alone at a moonlit pool, holding a bowl she made with her own hands, filled with something that might destroy her, and she will lift it to her lips anyway. Because the one thing she wants in the whole world is the one thing her father's fire could never give her. This is Circe by Madeline Miller, and it is not the story you think it is. She doesn't inherit her power. She digs it out of the dirt. It isn't given, it's made. When I was born, the name for what I was did not exist. They called me nymph, assuming I would be like my mother and aunts and 1,000 cousins. In her language, the word nymph means goddess. It also means bride. That word, she says, paced out the length and breadth of their futures. She is the daughter of Helios, the Titan's son, and a naiad named Circe. And she is a disappointment from the first hour. Her hair is dull, her eyes are yellow, and her voice is wrong, thin, strange. So unlike a god's that when a stranger finally hears it, he laughs and tells her she sounds like a mortal. Her brother and sister sharpen themselves on her. Her father barely looks at her. Remember that voice. Everything ends on it. Because this is a family with exactly one currency, and Circe has none of it. Then a Titan is dragged into her father's hall in chains. Prometheus, the one who gave fire to mortals. Zeus has sent a fury to flog him in front of every god who cares to watch. And they all care to watch. They come, they line the hall, they enjoy it. And then, when it goes on long enough, they get bored and they drift off to dinner. He never cries out, not once, in all his torment. And when that hall is finally empty, one person is still standing in it. The girl nobody looks at. She goes to him. She brings him nectar in a cup and holds it up so he can drink. She asks him questions. She talks to him. This criminal, this enemy of Zeus, knowing exactly what it would cost her if anyone came back through that door. Nobody taught her this. Nobody asked her to. It is the first thing she has ever chosen. She asks him about mortals. What are they like? There is no single answer, he tells her. They are each different. The only thing they share is death. And he tells her what that means. Their bodies crumble into the earth. Their souls turn to cold smoke and fly down to the underworld, where they feel no warmth, and everything they reach for slips out of their grasp. She doesn't understand. How do they bear it? She asks, knowing any day might be the last. As best they can, he says. And then he gives her the sentence it will take her 1,000 years to finish hearing. Not every god need be the same. They take Prometheus away to a mountain to be devoured forever. She never sees him again. But she has his words, and later she describes them exactly right, as a thing that looked like a stone, but inside was a seed. Because every god she has ever met is the same god, cruel, bored, and certain. Her father is the sun, and he has never once had a thought that wasn't about himself. And a criminal in chains has just told her that this is not the only thing a god is permitted to be. So that night, Circe opens her own palm with a dagger, just to see what color her blood is, to find out what she is actually made of. All my life had been murk and depths, but I was not a part of that dark water. I was a creature within it, not the dark, something alive inside it. She has no idea yet what that means. It will take her 1,000 years and a monster to find out. There is exactly one person in that hall who loves her back. Her youngest brother, Aet. She raises him herself, carries him, feeds him, teaches him, and he grows up brilliant and strange and talks to her like she is a person. He gives her a word, pharmaka, herbs with power in them, sprung from the spilled blood of gods, things that can change what a thing is. For a while, she is happy. She has never been happy before. And then one day he mentions, in passing, that he's leaving. He's been given a kingdom, Colchis, far in the east. She asks to come. He says no. He says it the way you'd decline a second helping, and he sails. So the boy she raised has just shown her precisely what she's worth to him, and she is alone again in a hall full of gods who find her boring. Which means that when she meets a mortal, she is very, very ready to love him. His name is Glaukos. He's a fisherman. He's poor. He's failing. And he's being ground down by a bad boat and a worse father. And he is the first creature in Circe's life who is glad to see her. So she helps. She goes to her grandmother Tethys and begs her to fill his nets, swearing she will never lie with him. It works. He gets fat and lucky and beautiful. And then Circe understands something she has somehow never had to think about. He's mortal. He is going to die. Not philosophically, I soon, in front of her. And there is nothing in all her divine blood that can stop it. So she asks herself a question. What is the one thing a god is actually afraid of? And she answers it. A power greater than their own. She says the forbidden word out loud. Pharmaca. And she goes looking for flowers. She finds them where the blood of Kronos soaked the earth when the Titans fell. Yellow flowers, on stems the color of blood. They don't grant wishes. They do something stranger. They turn a creature into its truest self. She presses the sap into Glaukos, and he wakes up a god. Blue-haired, deathless, a lord of the sea. It worked. A nymph with no power just made a god out of a fisherman. Her father, the sun, cannot do that. And Glaukos looks around at his shining new eternity, at every beautiful nymph in it, now available to him, and he chooses one. Not her. Her name is Scylla, the loveliest of the sea nymphs, and the cruelest. She takes Glaukos in front of everyone, and then she turns around and mocks Circe for it, publicly smiling. So Circe has just discovered she can change the nature of living things. And she has never been angrier in her life. She carries the sap to the cove where Scylla bathes and pours it in. And she tells herself, she will go on telling herself this for centuries, that she only meant to make her ugly, to let everyone finally see the ugliness that was already in there. Then Scylla steps into the water. What comes out has 12 legs and 6 heads on 6 long necks, and teeth like swords, and a mind that is going under. Because the flowers don't curse, they reveal. They turn a creature into its truest self. And here is where Miller refuses to let her heroine off the hook. Everyone offers Circe the easy exit. Her brother offers it. Scylla was always a monster. They say the flowers only showed it. She won't take it. I do not think anyone can say what is in someone else. Whatever Scylla was, Circe is the one who did this. And now she's about to make the worst mistake of her life. She's going to tell the truth. She walks into her father's hall and confesses all of it. And Helios does something that tells you everything about that family. He does not punish her for making a monster. He tells her she's lying, because if those flowers had that kind of power, then a nothing daughter of his has power that he does not, and that cannot be allowed to be true. So he burns her, nearly to death. Worst of my children, he says, faded and broken, whom I cannot pay a husband to take. Then Aeetes arrives and calmly proves the power is real, that all 4 of Perseus' children have it, and gives it its name. Pharmacus. Witch. And now Zeus is frightened, and frightened gods want a sacrifice. So Helios and Zeus strike a deal, and the other 3 are quietly excused. They stumbled into it by accident, Helios explains. They never meant to have power. Only Circe is exiled, alone, forever, to a deserted island. not for the monster, for confessing. Her sister tells her the real reason later, and it is worse than the lie. Zeus is terrified of witchcraft and wanted a sacrifice. Father picked you because you are worth the least. Her father carries her to the island himself and does not say one word the entire way. He sets her down. He leaves. The island is called Ayaya. It has a house, a forest, and nobody. She spends the first night waiting in the dark for whatever is out there to come and eat her. Nothing comes. And in the morning, something in her simply shifts. She looks at the trees and she thinks, I will not be like a bird bred in a cage, too dull to fly even when the door stands open. And then Circe says the line that cuts her life into a before and an after. I stepped into those woods and my life began. She has been exiled for having power she didn't have. So she is going to go and get some. Here's the thing nobody tells you about witchcraft. It's the beating heart of this whole book. Let me say what sorcery is not. It is not divine power, which comes with a thought and a blink. It must be made and worked, planned and searched out, dug up, dried, chopped and ground, cooked, spoken over, and sung. Even after all that, it can fail, as gods do not. Gods snap their fingers. Circe kneels in the dirt. For years she does nothing but drudgery, digging, drying, failing, trying the next thing, and the next. Her hands crack. Nothing is elegant about it. And then, slowly, it starts to work. Then I learned that I could bend the world to my will, as a bow is bent for an arrow. I would have done that toil 1,000 times to keep such power in my hands. I thought, this is how Zeus felt when he first lifted the thunderbolt. Her father's fire was handed to him at birth. Hers isn't given, it's made. A god starts visiting. Hermes, charming, faithless, a gossip. He becomes her lover and her newspaper, and one night he brings her news from the world. There's a monster in a strait, he says. 6 heads. It eats 6 sailors off every single ship that passes. Nobody can stop it. They just pay it. He tells this as an amusing anecdote. Circe does the arithmetic, and then she does it for the rest of her life. Every ship, 6 men, names she will never learn, over and over, forever, because of a bowl of sap she poured out in a fit of jealousy. And she reaches for Prometheus's words to describe it, the ones he used for what happens to mortals when they die. All of them cold smoke, marked with my name. She has centuries alone to sit with that. Hermes also mentions, in passing, a prophecy. One day, a mortal named Odysseus will land on her shore. And on a hillside, Circe finds a black-rooted, white-flowered plant that no mortal hand can pick, and gives it a name. Molly, Cursebreaker. Remember that one too. Then her sister Pasiphae summons her to Crete, and the gods lift her exile just long enough for the errand. Pasiphae routes the ship straight through Scylla's Strait, deliberately. She knows exactly what lives there. 12 men are taken off that deck. Bait, so that Circe will finally have to look at what she made. And Circe tries. She disguises herself as her brother. She gets the rest of them through. And then she stands there and calls up to those 6 faces, ready to beg, ready to bargain, ready to fix it. And she finds the thing she has been dreading for 300 years. There is nothing in there. No nymph left to reach, no mind to appeal to. The girl she was jealous of is gone, and what's left is only appetite, permanent, and beyond the power of any god to undo. Because a spell can only be unmade by the one who cast it. And Circe was the one who cast it. She sails on to Crete carrying that. What her sister wants is a midwife. Pasiphae is pregnant with something that is killing her, and Circe has to cut it free. What comes out is a bull-headed child with a taste for human flesh, and it takes 2.5 of Circe's fingers on its way into the world. This is the Minotaur. Circe isn't its mother, she's its aunt and its midwife, and the one who builds the cage that holds it, and who binds its hunger so that it only feeds for part of the year. She is the entire reason it can be survived at all. And then Pasiphae, cruel, vicious Pasiphae, who has tormented her since birth, tells her why she really sent for her. Not for her skill, for her blood. Let me tell you a truth about Helios and all the rest. They do not care if you are good. They barely care if you are wicked. The only thing that makes them listen is power. Circe has spent her whole life believing she was punished for being bad. She wasn't. She was punished for being weak. There is one more thing on Crete. A craftsman named Daedalus. He's mortal, and he's tired. And he built the device that made the Minotaur possible, and he will never forgive himself for it. He is the only person Circe has ever met who knows what it is to make a thing with your hands and have it cost you everything. He builds her a loom of cedar so beautiful that she weeps. And he looks at her island and her father's arrangement and the whole gilded shape of her life, and he tells her the truth. A golden cage is still a cage. They become lovers, and then her exile snaps her back to Aiaia, and she never sees him again. He dies. His son Icarus, wearing wings his father built for him, flies too high and falls, and Daedalus doesn't last long after that. Circe learns it secondhand, alone. But in a solitary life, there are rare moments when another soul dips near yours, as stars once a year brush the earth. Such a constellation was he to me, and now Aiaia is a cage. Then her niece Medea lands on the beach with a stolen fleece, a dull hero named Jason, and her own brother's blood on her hands. Circe cleanses her of it, and then she offers this girl the one thing nobody ever offered Circe. Stay, I'll teach you. You don't have to go back to him. And Medea, who is young and in love and absolutely certain, looks at her aunt and says, a pathetic exile who stinks of her loneliness, and sails. Days later, Aeetes arrives, hunting his daughter, the brother she raised. He comes crewed by men whose minds he has burned hollow to make them obedient, and he stands on her sand and demands his property back. And Circe says no. But this is Aiaia, she tells him. And she sees him, finally, for exactly what he is. He was never the one person who loved her. He was just the first one who was interesting. When he's gone, the island is more silent than it has ever been. Then the gods start using her island as a dumping ground. Nymphs, daughters who have embarrassed their fathers, get shipped to Aiaia to scrub her floors for a year. She cannot refuse. Even her punishment is somebody else's convenience. When she remarks to Hermes that nymphs never seem to escape the gods who chase them, he laughs. They are terrible at getting away. She never lets him touch her again. Then one afternoon, a ship comes in, 20 men. Their captain says they're lost. And Circe, starving for company, delighted, careless, feeds them at her own table. And their captain attacks her in her own house. Here is the part that matters. No one comes, not one god, not the moon, who was watching, not her father, the sun, who sees everything on earth, every day, and who saw this. I am only a nymph after all, she says, for nothing is more common among us than this. You already know what happens next. Everybody knows this part. Circe turns men into pigs. It's the one thing the myth remembers about her, and for 3,000 years it has been the proof that she's a monster, a predator on an island, doing it because that is simply what she is. Miller looks at that story and asks the one question nobody bothered to ask. Why? Circe had reached for a spell that night and been stopped, and when it was over, she found that those same herbs had another use. As it turned out, I did kill pigs that night after all, and she never stops. Every ship after that, every crew, before they can stand, because she will not gamble on their being good men when she now knows precisely that no god is coming if she guesses wrong. This is the part the myth kept, with the reason filed off, not a predator on an island, a woman who was attacked in her own house and decided never to be caught standing again. Odysseus will ask her, later, why pigs? She won't tell him. The truth is, men make terrible pigs, and much later, long after she has stopped feeling untouchable and filled with teeth and power, she will ask herself the question that actually haunts her. How long would I have gone on filling my sty if Odysseus had not come? She doesn't have a good answer. That is what the rest of this book is for, which brings us to the man with the sword. In Homer, this scene is famous. Odysseus drinks the wine, the drug fails. He draws his blade, and the proud witch drops to her knees and begs him for mercy. Miller has read that version. So has Circe. Humbling women seems to me a chief pastime of poets, as if there can be no story unless we crawl and weep. Here's what actually happens. He never drinks. He sits at her table for an hour gesturing with a full cup he never once brings to his lips, because Hermes gave him the antidote, and he doesn't trust Hermes either. He never draws the sword. He just rests his hand on it. And the two of them arrive at a wall. You have the mole, and I have your men. I cannot harm you, but if you strike at me, they will never be themselves again. Nobody kneels. It's a negotiation. And for the first time in her life, Circe is talking to an equal. He asks for a month. He stays a year. He gives her Troy at night, in the dark. The horse, the wooden belly, the knife he held at his own men's throats to keep them silent inside it. Only I had the stomach to see what must be done, he says. And he says it like a virtue. She hears both things at once, the wit and the rod underneath it. He talks about his wife, and Circe understands immediately that she is already lost. She is a fixed star, he says of Penelope. She knows herself. In one afternoon, Apollo takes Circe's body and uses it as a vessel for a prophecy on her own island, without asking. Even here, even now. So she gives Odysseus his road home. The underworld, the sirens, wax in the men's ears, and tie yourself to the mast. The strait where the thing she made is still waiting. In Thrinacia, where her father keeps his cattle, touch one of those cows, she tells him, and Helios will take every man you have. I will hold, he says. She believes him. It was never his will she was afraid of. He sails. He showed me his scars, and in return he let me pretend that I had none. She is already pregnant. He never knows. The pregnancy nearly kills her. Aletheia, goddess of childbirth, simply never arrives. Somebody is holding her back. So Circe takes a knife and a bronze mirror and delivers her son herself, alone, on the floor of her house. And then the real trial starts. He screams. He screams for months. He will not sleep, and he will not be soothed. And the goddess who taught herself to bend the world like a bow cannot make one infant stop crying. She is more helpless with him than she ever was in her father's hall. There is one night she uses her magic on him in anger. The look on his face breaks something in her that never fully mends. And then she finds out why he won't settle. Somebody is trying to kill him. Something has been reaching for her child since the hour he was born. So Circe, filthy, is sleepless, ordinary, puts down the baby and goes to find out who. Athena, in full armor, in her house, lit up like a blade, politely asking for the child. And Circe, a minor nymph, least of the lesser goddesses, worth the least, says no to the goddess of war. And then she does something better. She works out why Athena is asking instead of simply taking him. The fates forbid it. Athena cannot strike the boy directly. She needs someone to hand him over. So Circe builds a wall out of nothing. She hangs a canopy of death taint over the entire island, drawn up from the blood of the underworld, and marks every inch of Aiaia with her son's name, so that no god can reach him there. Be witness now to the power of Circe, witch of Aiaia, and then she holds it up, renewing it every month. For 16 years. 16 years of a nymph outstaring Olympus over a cradle, and in every one of them she learns what the gods have always known. Love is the one weapon that actually works on you. At 16, Telegonus wants his father, and he cannot be talked out of it. They fight like animals. She cannot hold him. So she decides to arm him instead. There is one weapon in the world that can kill anything, even a god. The tail of Trigon, a stingray older than the Olympians, at the bottom of the sea. So Circe breaks her exile and walks down into the dark. And the god there tells her the price. My law is as it has ever been. If you would take my tail, you must first submit to its poison. That is the price. Eternal pain in exchange for a few more mortal years for your son. Is it worth the cost? Eternal. She cannot die. That word means exactly what it says. Aetes came down here once for the same weapon. Aetes said no. Circe reaches out her hand, and Trigon stops her, because the reaching was the test, and in all the ages of the world, she is the first one to pass it. You would have touched the poison. That is enough. He makes her cut the tail from his own living body. Please, she says, do not make me do this. Child, you have come to me, and when it's done, when she's standing there holding a thing that can kill anything, sick at what she just did to something beautiful, Trigon gives her the 3 words this entire book has been walking toward. Then, child, make another. Telegonus sails with the spear. He is back in days. He found his father, and Odysseus older and paranoid, and years past trusting anything, saw an armed stranger on his beach and wrestled the spear out of the boy's hands. It scratched him. Odysseus is dead, by his own son, by his own hand. With a weapon his lover went to the bottom of the ocean to fetch. Nobody murdered him. And Circe understands, far too late, exactly what Athena spent 16 years trying to prevent. And the boat isn't empty. Telegonus has brought Odysseus' widow and his other son home with him, Penelope and Telemachus, 30 years old, arriving at the house of the witch who slept with his father, carrying nothing but a knife for cutting up sheep. And that night, he tells Circe what actually happened out there. It starts with the one thing she never knew. They landed on Thrinacia. A storm pinned them to that beach for days, and Odysseus held until he had to sleep. And while he slept, his men killed some of her father's cows. Her shining half-sisters went straight to Helios, and when that ship finally put back out to sea, the sun blasted it to splinters. Every man aboard drowned. A year those eager, reckless men had lived with me. I had fed them, cared for their illnesses and scars, taken pleasure in watching them mend, and now they were wiped from the earth as if they had never lived. She warned Odysseus. Odysseus held. It made no difference at all. Her father killed every one of them, and he did it over cattle. And then Telemachus takes the rest of the myth apart. The hero came home. He killed a hall full of men, and then he didn't stop. He got worse. Suspicious, violent, restless. A man who no longer knew how to be anything except at war. And then Telemachus tells her the thing he cannot put down. His father ordered him to kill the 12 slave women who had been forced to the suitors' beds. He did it. I make no excuse for that. I will wear that shame all my life. And Circe looks at this young man who has spent his whole life being told he is his father's son, carrying his father's crime as though it were his own nature. She has spent her whole life the same way. Helios' daughter, Perseus' brat, a witch. So she gives him the only thing she has ever actually learned. You are not your blood. Penelope has a confession of her own. She steered her son here on purpose. Because Athena wants him. Odysseus is dead, and gods don't surrender a treasure. They just pick a new one. She is coming for Telemachus next. And Penelope, who watched it happen to her husband, is very clear about what it does to a man. The war did not break him. It made him more himself. Athena arrives, and she offers Telemachus everything: a kingdom in the west, an empire, glory and songs, and a name that outlives him. The exact thing every hero in every story has ever said yes to. He says no. She's so stunned she has to threaten him with meaninglessness. There will be no songs made of you, no stories. You will be no one. I choose that fate, he says. And Athena, humiliated, needing a hero, any hero, turns on her heel and offers the same crown to Circe's son. Telegonus takes it. I lifted my hand in blessing and gave my son to the world. And now Circe stops asking. She summons her father, the sun, to her own beach, and when he comes, she blackmails him. She knows what he did to Prometheus. She knows about the Titan mutiny he still thinks is a secret. She will carry all of it to Zeus unless her exile ends today. He ends it. I have a better idea. I will do as I please, and when you count your children, leave me out. Then she takes a boat to the strait she has not been able to look at in 300 years. She turns 12 fish into 12 rams. She fills a jar with venom milked from Trigon's tail and mixes in her own blood. And she calls the thing she made up out of the rocks, and she unmakes it. Scylla turns to stone. Nobody forgave her. No god fixed it for her. There was no absolution, and nobody was coming. She just did the work. She broke the world once. So she made another. On a strange shore, with the flowers in her bag, Circe finally tells Telemachus the one story she has always kept back. The men who came to her island, what their captain did, what she did to them in return. She has carried that alone for centuries. She has never once said it out loud. I did not tell you before because I did not want it to lie between us. And now you do not mind if it does. Now I want you to have the truth, whatever comes. And when she's finished, she says the thing she has believed her entire life. You see, gods are ugly things. We are not our blood, he answers. A witch once told me that. Then they sail home, and Circe finds Penelope, a mortal queen. No divine blood at all, quietly, over one winter, turning herself into a witch. You were right. It is mostly will and work. Not blood, not birth, not anybody's gift. Will and work. So Circe hands her the island, which leaves one thing. Circe goes back to the flowers, the same yellow flowers from Kronos' blood that turned a fisherman into a god and a nymph into a monster, the ones that reveal what a thing truly is. She makes a draft, and she does not know what it will do to her. It might make her mortal, or it might sprout heads and teeth and turn her into the thing she has feared most since the day she stood over a cove and watched Scylla come up out of the water. So she kneels by a pool in the moonlight, and she lets herself imagine it. Just imagine. The life she wants. A husband, 2 daughters, gray hair and lines and scars that stay. Growing old. None of it has happened. She isn't promising you it will. And then she comes back to the water and the bowl and the constellations turning overhead. And she says this: I thought once that gods are the opposite of death, but I see now they are more dead than anything, for they are unchanging and can hold nothing in their hands. All my life I have been moving forward, and now I am here. I have a mortal's voice. Let me have the rest. I lift the brimming bowl to my lips and drink. And the book ends, right there, mid-swallow. Miller never tells you whether it works. That is the point. Circe's whole life was other people deciding what she was allowed to be. And the last thing she does is choose anyway, with no guarantee, no permission, and no way of knowing. The girl who couldn't light a log became the only god in the story who could hold something in her hands. It was never given to her. She made it. Miller wrote one other novel like this, The Song of Achilles, her Trojan war book. That's where we're going next.